Hey everyone, it's Mo again. So in the last two videos we talked about diet, and diet is probably the most important thing in helping to maintain a healthy weight and a healthy body. However, right next to that is probably exercise. And exercise is crucial in any type of weight loss or weight gain program. Hey everyone, it's Mo again. So in the last two videos we talked about diet, and diet is probably the most important factor in helping to maintain a healthy body weight and maintain your health in general. The next thing would be exercise. Now, exercise is something that, there's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different ways people define their exercise habits as, and I really leave it up to you to decide how you want to pursue an exercise regimen. But I must say that before you start any exercise regimen, make sure you check with your doctor to make sure that it's something that you're able to do and that you're fine in doing and will be healthy in doing so. Okay? So when we talk about exercise, a lot of people think about going to the gym, running on the treadmill, using a Stairmaster, lifting weights, but there's many different ways to do exercise. There are sports. You could be on a sports team, you could be in a league, you can play out after school with your friends. There's other types of hobbies and activities you could do. For example, if you're into hiking and you like to hike with your siblings or your parents every day, that's a great form of activity as well. But there are some things that we should know about exercise as well. So in general, people your age should be exercising at least 1 hour every single day, okay? And so you should be moving and getting active at least that much time. Now, before we even think about running or playing sports and doing all this stuff and jumping and throwing things, there's one thing I really want to kind of drill into all of you today, and that is stretching. Stretching is really important, okay? It helps reduce injuries, it warms up your body, it warms up your muscles. It actually can help you increase your strength when you're doing any kind of weight training or any type of sports activities, because it actually will lengthen the muscle a little bit. And lengthening the muscle and getting the blood flowing there will help increase your strength, okay? You're also going to feel good. Stretching and exercise in general releases endorphins, which are these kind of feel good and feel happy molecules that act on your brain. As far as stretching, you should at least be, stretching for, 5 to 15 minutes before every workout. And one particular type of stretching that has been, the research has been kind of pushing recently is what's called dynamic stretching. So there's static stretching where you're just sitting there, and let's say if you're stretching your arm, for example, you're gonna pull it across your chest and keep it there for 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and on and on and on, and then switch and do the same thing on the other side. That's static stretching. Static means kind of stuck. Think of static means stuck, so you're just stuck in this one position, all right? What has been more proposed to be better for your muscles, and particularly before you do a workout or a sport, is dynamic stretching. And that's going to be things where you're kind of moving around and stretching at the same time, okay? So doing this type of movement for 30 times or for 30 seconds, okay, is what would be a type of dynamic exercise, dynamic stretch. And you want to do that for your entire body, especially the major muscle groups. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is exercise, or the sport or the movements that you'll be actually doing in order to help you burn some calories and gain some strength. So a big way to, well, before we get into that, exercise in general has many benefits, but some of the main benefits that I'd like you to think about is, first thing, that you'll maintain a healthy body weight. It'll burn the extra calories off and keep your weight at a good area. The next thing is that, aside from just maintaining a healthy body weight, it'll also maintain healthy mental health. And you release endorphins and chemicals that make you feel happy. In general, you'll have less stress and less anxiety, and there's a less risk of depression when you're working out regularly. Okay. Next thing is that exercising regularly will actually increase your immune system, and you'll get sick less. Okay. And in particular, I'm pretty sure you've had a cold here and there. You could probably avoid a couple of those if you worked out regularly, right? And also there are some of the more obvious things like becoming stronger, maybe becoming more toned, all the things that go along with the more aesthetic side of working out. And lastly, this probably doesn't have to go, I don't even have to say it, but if you're playing a sport and you're a sport in general, you're exercising, but if you have another regimen on top of that where you're doing particularly weight training, or doing some type of extra exercise, that will help you improve your performance in that sport. Okay, so there's a big bridging point in sport and exercise that I'd like to mention real quick, and that is aerobic exercise versus anaerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is more of like something that's a steady type of exercise: jogging, cycling, maybe swimming, dancing. These things are aerobic exercise. Okay, we're able to do these for a long time. You could do them for half an hour, 1 hour, a couple hours sometimes, without having to stop. Then there's anaerobic exercise. And anaerobic exercise are things like weightlifting and resistance training, sprinting, jumping, things that require are high intensity and require a lot of energy, and you can really only do them for a small amount of time, before you have to really just stop, and you stop for that whole session kind of. Okay, so the reason that I mentioned these is because aerobic exercise is great. It's a good place to start usually for an exercise regimen, but it doesn't really allow you to burn as much calories, and it may not allow you to gain as much strength as, for example, would anaerobic exercise. Okay, and in particular, I'd just like to mention 3 things that kind of fit in here. So under aerobic exercise, you could really also call it cardio exercise. And that's good and all. It's a good place to start when you're first starting out on a regular exercise regimen. But eventually, you want to kind of evolve it into adding in a component of anaerobic exercise. And the 2 that I'd really like to talk about today is resistance training, or HIIT training, which is high intensity interval training. So resistance training is really anything that puts resistance, pretty much for example, puts on weights on your limbs when you're doing activity, or on your body in general. Okay, so weightlifting is a type of resistance training. Using bands, resistant bands, is also a type of resistance training. For example, if you were to tie a tire to your waist and run, that would also be resistance training, because it's pulling you. It's resisting your forward motion, or you trying to run the opposite way, because you have weight on you. Okay, so the good thing about resistance training is you gain muscle. It is anaerobic, so you're burning a lot of calories, and actually you end up burning calories even after the workout to an extent. Okay, something that goes even further is HIIT training. Now, HIIT training, or high intensity interval training, is actually been shown to increase your metabolism during and immediately after your workout, and you actually keep burning calories, just like weightlifting, but even more for a longer amount of time, and even more amount of calories after you've stopped training. And you actually don't need that much time to do a lot of HIIT training, because it's so intense that you really need a small amount. So usually HIIT workouts will actually last anywhere from 15 to 20, at most 30 minutes. And you only need to do them a couple times a week, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and you can see great results with it. You feel really good, get all the benefits of working out. And if you have a tight schedule, it really is able to accommodate those kinds of schedules. And the thing about HIIT training is that, for example, you'll do maybe 20 seconds of a intense exercise like sprinting, and then you could do 10 seconds of just less vigorous exercise, such as just maybe doing push-ups or doing sit-ups, and you can alternate that same thing over and over again and do it for a couple cycles, maybe 8 cycles, for example. And if you do 8 cycles of that, you'll end up doing 30 seconds times 8 will be about 4 minutes. And after that 4 minutes, you can take a 2-3 minute break and then go back to doing another set of exercises. For example, you could do, instead of doing sprints, you could, for example, do mountain climbers and alternate that with doing sit-ups, for example. All right. So there's a lot of combinations that you could do, and a lot of these types of workouts are available online. You could make your own combination. You know, there may be something particular that you like to do. For example, maybe as far as sports go, perhaps you like basketball, and you could do liners for 20-30 seconds and then alternate that with a smaller portion of a low intensity exercise, which would be shooting hoops for 10 or 20 seconds, and then do a couple cycles of that, take a break, do again a couple cycles of the same exercise or different exercises, and do that for an entire 3 sets, 3 or 4 sets, which would come out to be at about 20 minutes or so of exercise, and that could be your exercise for the day. Okay. I'd really like you guys to just play around with this, look it up on the internet, try some new things, really remember the benefits of exercise, regular exercise that I've talked about today, and think about starting a regimen that starts slow. You don't have to start doing 1 hour intense workouts. You can start by doing 10-15 minutes of a light jog, perhaps just even stretching. You can start stretching, and then the next week do your stretch and your jog, and maybe a month after that you got used to it, you can go ahead and escalate to trying some high intensity exercise or weight training. Okay, but the biggest thing here is to gradually increase the amount of time that you do your workouts in, and gradually increase the intensity of it. That way you reach a point to where you're doing pretty intense workouts, and that'll make you pretty active, healthy in multiple ways that I've already mentioned. Again, as with any exercise program, make sure to check with your doctor, and be safe when you're lifting weights. Make sure you're supervised. Make sure there's someone, an adult in the room, who's shown you the right technique and that you're employing good technique. Don't try to go for the heavy weights when you're starting weightlifting for the first time. Actually try to go without any weight and get your form down, and then start adding weight slowly. Okay, and there's sometimes myths to where you end up becoming short or staying short if you do weightlifting or you do certain exercises, and there really hasn't been any strong evidence to suggest that anymore. Okay, so you can do weightlifting, but just make sure you do it in the right form with a adult supervisor who can really teach you the way it's done and prevent injuries. Okay.